Let's look at the Moles Gizmo on the Explore Learning website. We'll launch a gizmo by pressing on this button and wait for a moment for the gizmo to load. Scroll down a little bit to make sure the gizmo is entirely seen. There are three tabs: Avogadro constant, conversions, and dimensional analysis. Conversions and dimensional analysis are probably the most important part of this gizmo, so watch till the end of the video to see how these two tabs are useful. Here in Avogadro's constant, we can choose different substances. Copper is chosen for us automatically, although I like to use carbon. On the left-hand side, we have a nanoscale. We have a really small scale where we can drag one atom of carbon onto the scale, and it tells us the average mass of one carbon is 12.011 U. This U is a atomic mass unit, and it's best known as atomic mass unit. On the right-hand side here, we have a scoop, we have a jar of carbon powder, and we have a regular scale. We can change the size of the scoop. Right now it's really small. It's 1 times 10 to 10 carbon atoms. We can change it to a moderate number. The scoop gets bigger, or to a really big number, and the scoop gets really large. We'll use a moderate number and add atoms, about 1 times 10 to 20 carbon atoms. And that is only 0.02 grams. And we can keep adding some more scoops. We can change the size of the scoops. And then that tells us that 1.01 times 10 to the 22 atoms is only 0.201 grams. It's not a lot. Each atom weighs very, very little. If we look at the conversions tab, we can see we also have a variety of elements that we can choose. Once again, I'm going to choose carbon. Here you can use the slider to determine how many moles of carbon you want to work with. The default number is 1, but let's choose 3.2. We're going to click on the Start button here, and our shelves is now filled with 3.2 moles of carbon in the jar. We can drag each jar of carbon into this atom counter, and it tells us 1 mole is 6.022 times 10 to the 23 atoms of carbon. We can continue adding jars of carbon into our atom counter, and we find that 3.2 moles of carbon is 1.927 times 10 to the 24 atoms of carbon. So we can use this to help us convert moles of anything into atoms of anything. And we can reset if we like. Although right now, let's put a jar in the bottom of this atom counter, and we can put it on a scale here. And we'll see that once again, 1 mole of carbon atoms is 12.01 grams, right? Because this is the molar mass of carbon. 6.02 times 10 to 23 atoms of carbon, 1 mole weighs 12.01 grams. There are other elements and molecules that you can look at. One thing to note is that when we look at molecules such as copper oxide, copper 1 oxide, that we're going to look at what's called formula units, and we can add formula units into our scoop. That was for the Avogadro's constant. That was for this one. Add units instead of add molecules or atoms, because this is a compound. There are 2 elements in copper 1 oxide, copper and oxygen. Lastly, the dimensional analysis tab. This is perhaps the most useful tab of this gizmo. We have here a question 1. How many grams are in 3 moles of carbon? All right, so we're starting with 3 moles because that's what's given to us in our question. It is now up to us to drag and drop either of these tiles into this to help us solve the question. So once again, we're starting with moles, and we want to have grams at the end. So the tile that we want to use has to have moles and grams. So instead of moles and atoms. So we're going to drag this tile into the bottom and look at our setup. Right now, our setup has moles on top and moles on top. So the dimension, moles, does not cancel. So we can click on this button here, flip the tile, and the gizmo tells us now moles on top cancel with moles on bottom. So we're left with the dimension, the units, grams of carbon. So we can also click on these checkboxes to say, oh, the answer will be in grams of carbon. And we're going to show the numerical result as well. 3.00 times 12.011 equals 36.0 of what? What units is left? Grams of carbon. And then we can use this check button to see that, yes, indeed, we have our answers or we have our question answered correctly. Click on this button to show you a next example, the next question. This one is, how many moles are in 1.2 times 10 to the 24 atoms of copper? So we're starting with atoms and we want to find moles. So we're going to need to use the tile moles and atoms. However, just for fun, we're going to drag in this one, which does not work. There is no way to flip these tiles to give us the answer in moles. So this is not the correct tile. So let's try this one. This one automatically tells us that the dimension, the words atoms of copper cancel. And since we have these two check boxes checked, it tells us it's going to be 1.99 moles of copper. So if we were to have it the wrong tile, it would tell us this is incorrect. If we have the correct tile, press check, this will tell us it's correct. Hopefully this gizmo helps you convert between atoms to moles and to mass. If you have any questions, please use the comments below to ask a question.